bring much fruit from your word, and we pray this in Jesus' name. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Last week we studied verse 11. Tonight we will start with verse 12. So again, these are Paul's last words to Timothy and his last documented words. And he's about to go, he's going to be with the Lord. And so he tells him in verse 2, preach the word. Why? Verse 3, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. And then the second thing he says at the last section of verse 5, fulfill your ministry. Why? For I'm already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. It's time for me to go. I'm about to go be with the Lord. And then in verse 9, be diligent. And he wants Timothy to be diligent, but it's specifically to come to me quickly. Why? For Demas has forsaken me. And so we've seen that now he's in the be diligent part, he's telling him specifically about things that he wants before, that he wants to be fulfilled before he dies. Does anyone remember, like, the first thing he requested? So, no, so that he wants with him. Not to... People he wants with him? Yeah. So who? So... Mark, right? He wants, before Mark, he wants, you said, Timothy. He wants Timothy to come to him. And who's already with him? Luke. And then who else does he want him to bring with him? Mark. He says, come, but don't come empty-handed. I want you to come. And Paul is going to keep piling up what he wants with him. So here he says, I want you, Timothy, and I want you to come. I want you to be diligent. I want you to come quickly. Second is, I already have Luke with me. And by the way, Demas had left me, and I sent a couple of people. I sent Crescens to Galatia. I sent Titus to Dalmatia. And then Luke is with me, and I want you to bring Mark with you, because Mark is really useful. And we've seen last week that Luke is a professional, right? He's a physician, but he's a beloved physician. And he's willing to sacrifice that he may serve the Lord and serve Paul. And then we've seen Mark, his start was not, Demas, his start was good, but then he ended bad. Mark started not so good, but then he transformed, and he allowed God to make him continue and end on a really amazing way of serving God. And we spent the majority of the time talking about Mark last week. And so tonight, he tells Timothy, in verse 12, he says, Antiochus I have sent to Ephesus. Now, where is Timothy at the time before he's coming? Where do you guys think he is? So most people believe that. It's hard to tell, but I think probably was Ephesus, and it makes sense. We know in 1 Timothy, when he wrote it, that in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 3, he says, as I urged you when I went into Macedonia, remain in Ephesus. I want you to be in Ephesus. It's very strategic. Why? That you may charge some that they teach no other doctrine. I want you to teach people to teach the truth, not to have, bad doctrine. And so here he was the pastor of Ephesus. And after he stayed as pastor of Ephesus, well, now he's calling him, right? He's telling him in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 9, be diligent to come to me quickly. But Ephesus is a very strategic place and a very important place that you need someone of high level, a highly functional, very, Holy Spirit-filled person to go serve there, because it is a very tough church to pastor. And so he's asking for Timothy, who's like his biggest guy, to come to him, and then he doesn't want to leave it alone. So in verse 12, he says, Antiochus I have sent to Ephesus. Antiochus is a pretty amazing guy. And I hope, as we are studying these names, we could zip through this and finish quickly, but I think it adds a lot as we learn these people and understand who they are and kind of look at it, who do I identify with, right? Hopefully no one identifies with Demas. Starts well and then, doesn't end up being with the group anymore. But I hope we can identify with, maybe I'm a growing believer like Crescens. Growing, maybe no one knows me, I'm only mentioned once, but boy, do I do what the Lord wants me to do, and I do it well, and I'm doing it as I continue to grow. That's Crescens. Then Titus, I'll touch on him a little bit tonight, is like very close to Timothy. Very, very, very amazing guy. And that's why there's only three epistles, but to two people that are pastoral epistles, and that's Timothy and Titus. 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. And here he talked about Luke. So someone, it doesn't mean that I have to quit my job and, I could still be a professional and still serve the Lord and serve Him really well. And we find that in Luke. We find Mark, maybe was like shaky in the beginning, had some issues, and God dealt with it. And God was able to free him of those issues, whether it was like, we talked about it last week, whether it's family issues, or whether it's pride issues, or whether it's hatred issues toward different groups. And all these things God dealt with, and then He freed him, and then He made him an amazing man of God who wrote one of the 4 Gospels. So then, tonight, he says, Tychicus I have sent to Ephesus. Tychicus is pretty amazing. He's one of those guys who it's not important to him to be recognized. It's not important for him to be in the spotlight. He doesn't have to be any of those things, but he is very effective. And he is perfect at being the substitute. Have you ever seen people like, I'm not going to be a substitute. I don't have to be the main thing. I have to be the main one. I have to be the main teacher. I'm not no substitute. And some people have that complex, and that's probably not a good one. Now, Tychicus is like, no, I'm okay. Just plug me in where you need me. Plug me in where there's a need. And that's what Tychicus is. So there's going to be now a need in Ephesus because Timothy is coming. And so he sends him in place of Timothy. He's not quite Timothy. He doesn't get the recognition of, again, another very strong guy to be the pastor of that place, and that's Titus. And here we see that Titus is very organized, and that's why he says, I put you over there, that you should set in order the things that are lacking. So whatever is missing in this church, whatever is not there, whatever needs to be fulfilled, whatever needs to complete that church, that is what you could do, Titus. And this is Titus 1:5. The things that are lacking, and what? Appoint elders in every city. I want you to go in every city, and I want you to appoint elders. I want you to make there be order in the church as I commanded you. So here he sent him to Crete, and Titus did a great job in Crete. Well, let's go to chapter 3, Titus 3. Titus chapter 3, verse 12. When I send, that's what he told Timothy. Well, in Titus 3:12, he says, when I send Artemas to you, or Tychicus, be diligent to come to me. So here again, he's the same thing he's telling him. I want you to come to me. I want you to be diligent to come to me at Nicopolis, for I have decided to spend the winter there. So I'm going to be spending some months there, probably 3 months in Nicopolis. So I want you, Titus, I need you. I want you to be diligent. I want you to come to me. But I'm also not going to leave Crete alone. I'm going to send one of 2 people, and that's Artemas or Tychicus. So again, a guy you can count on. A guy who's not like, no, that's not my main assignment. Let's go from verse 1. After the uproar had ceased, the chapter 19 was a pretty bad riot, and it happened in Ephesus. So anyway, after that has ceased, Paul called the disciples to himself, embraced them, and departed to go to Macedonia. So here Paul is on his way to Macedonia. Now when he had gone over that region and encouraged them with many words, he came to Greece. So he goes to Macedonia, and then he encouraged them, and then from there he goes to Greece, and stayed 3 months. And when the Jews plotted against him, as he was about to sail to Syria, so here his plan was from Greece, he's going to go to Syria, and he's going to sail. So he's going to go by way of sea, right? Boat, sea, you guys are awake, great. To Syria, but what happened, there were Jews that plotted against him, and they wanted to kill him. So he says, probably not the best way, because they're going to sabotage that trip. He decided to return through Macedonia. So he started to go north and go by way of land rather than by way of sea. And Sopater, so here now there's Paul's life is in danger. Some people are already trying to hurt him and kill him. There was a riot trying to kill him in chapter 19, and now he leaves that place, and he goes to Macedonia, and from there he's trying to get, and he goes to Greece, and then from there he's trying to get to Syria, and then there's another plot to kill him by the Jews. They're just going after him and chasing him. So then some people step in. Sopater of Berea accompanied him to Asia. Also Aristarchus and Secundus of the Thessalonians, and Gaius of Derbe, and Timothy, and Tychicus. He's there. And Trophimus of Asia. What happened to these people? These men going ahead waited for us at Troas. So here, Paul, you're planning to head this way? Don't go there yet. Okay, let us go before you. Let's make sure it's safe, and then you can come. We're going to clear the way. We're going to make sure that things are okay for you. These guys are risking their lives, all these names. And one of them is Tychicus. Again, very selfless, and he just loves God's work and wants to protect God's people. So these men going ahead waited for us at Troas, but we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and in 5 days joined them at Troas, where we stayed 7 days. So they waited for them in Troas. After 5 days they joined them, and then they stayed in Troas for 5 days. And so here we see again Tychicus showing up in a way that is so selfless. And again, he has a servant's heart on wanting to serve God. Now look at Ephesians chapter 6. So we've seen in the qualities of Tychicus, he's willing to go and not be the spotlight, to go and fill in for someone else. And he did it twice. We've seen that he's willing to risk his life to protect someone else. That's to protect Paul. Now look at Ephesians 6. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 21. But that you also may know my affairs and how I am doing. He knows that the people of Ephesus really want to know what's going on with you, Paul. And because you know where he wrote Ephesus from, right? The Epistle to the Ephesians? Where do you think he was? Huh? Prison. He was in prison. Imagine someone you love is in prison, okay? Now, do you think you can, let's talk, 2019. Can you call someone in prison? In America. Let's talk America, let's not talk other nations or countries. Can you call someone in prison and be like, hey, I'll call you. Call me. You can't do that, okay? There's probably ways to communicate, but it's not, depends on what level of prison a person is in. You're not going to be like, some areas are more secure because they don't want you to go and do prison break where you can kind of free somebody up. So it's not that free, not that easy. Now imagine when you don't even have phones. Okay, I know. What? No phones, no internet. These things did not exist. And now he's in prison. You can't really know what's up with the guy. And they are what? They love him and they really want to know what's going on with him. And so what happened? But that you also may know my affairs. He knows that they care about him. Now he knows that he needs Tychicus, and it's really helpful for him to have Tychicus with him in jail and in prison. First of all, he's comforting him. It is so encouraging to have another believer with you and you're not there alone. And so it's so encouraging to have him, but he's willing to let him go so that if the people of Ephesus can feel reassured and they can, know Paul's, what's his state and what's going on with him. That you may know my affairs and how I am doing. What am I doing? Tychicus. Again, he comes up. Again, we see Tychicus. Not only is he a good person that can just fill in somewhere. Not only is he a good person that can sacrifice for someone, but what else can he do? He says, Tychicus, and he says, before I tell you what I'm going to send him to do, I want you to know who this guy is. He is not just like, an average guy. He's a beloved brother. Beloved brother. So he's really dear to me. He's close to me. He's someone I can count on. He's a brother. But also he's beloved. He has compassion. He has tender emotions toward me. And wow, does he comfort me. I enjoy being in his company. Have you ever had people that you enjoy being in their company? It's a really nice thing. Have you ever had some people that maybe you don't really enjoy being in their company? It's like, you kind of like, oh man, what? It's only been a minute. It felt like 3 hours. And so Tychicus was the kind of guy that he's a beloved brother. But he's not just a beloved brother. He's what? A faithful minister in the Lord. And now minister is not the titles that people have nowadays. Minister means servant, okay? Like a slave. A faithful, so he's a guy you can count on. He's dependable. He's a guy who really loves the Lord and he serves the Lord from all his heart. He's a faithful minister in the Lord. He serves God from all his heart. He serves me. And in serving me, he's serving God. Minister in the Lord. And everything he's about is about the Lord. And that's what he does. And that's how he functions. And that's what he likes to do. A faithful minister in the Lord will make all things known to you. Here he's what? Not only is he a guy that can fill in. Not only is he a guy who sacrifices. But he's also a guy who you can count on. But also especially count on with what? Information. Have you ever told someone something to pass it on to someone else? Didn't quite, go across the way it should have been. Have you ever played that game telephone? Yeah? So you know what happens at the end? Usually at the end, it's something wacky that has nothing to do with what started. And it has to do with, you heard something. And so here, Tychicus is a guy who doesn't do that kind of stuff. He gives things as is. Or have you ever had someone, when they come and share something, it's like, you heard the story, you were kind of there, but it's not quite what happened. The story is a little bit, has a little bit more drama in it that maybe existed, or some more, salt and pepper and, spices, or it's like very watered down, and it's not the real story, not the real thing. That's not Tychicus. He will make all things known to you. He's gonna make sure that you know how we are doing, what the Lord is doing in our lives, what successes are happening, what challenges are there, so you can know how to pray correctly. And then he said, whom I have sent to you for this very purpose. He's a guy I can trust. Have you ever had someone that you can trust to do something and they'll do it right? Have you ever had someone that you could trust that they will pass on information and they will pass it on correctly? Have you ever had some people you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And sometimes you're stuck. You're like, I hope they will deliver on this. But you can't really trust them. That's not Tychicus. Tychicus is the type of guy that you could trust. You could trust him with information. You could trust him to deliver everything. Whom I have sent to you for this very purpose, that you may know our affairs. I'm willing to let him go. I'm willing to sacrifice him so that you guys can feel better, so that he can come and share with you what is going on with us, but not just that, and that he may comfort your hearts. Another ability that Tychicus has is not only that he can deliver good news or deliver the news, but another ability that he has is he can what? He can encourage people. You can go and be discouraged, and then he lifts you up. He shares with you the Word of God in a way that is very effective and is very touching, and it makes you want to live stronger for the Lord. That's Tychicus. I'll share one more part in Colossians chapter 4. We're going to see some similarity here, but something added. Colossians 4 verse 7. Tychicus. Again, he comes up again. What is he? And I remember, by the way, Colossians, where was it written from? Jail, prison. The same one that he was in Ephesus. So Ephesus, Philippians, Colossians. There's a fourth one. They're all from the same jail. Philemon. Those four are from jail. And the same jail. The first big imprisonment for Paul. He had many. He was in and out of jail quite a bit. But Colossians 4 verse 7, Tychicus, a beloved brother. So we talked about it in Ephesians, so I'm not going to talk about it again. Second, faithful minister. We talked about it in Ephesians, so I won't mention it again. But he adds something here, a fellow servant in the Lord. Not only is he a minister, but he's a fellow servant in the world, in the Lord. Meaning, this guy has a servant's heart, has one who he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't have to be tended to. It's not like, oh wow, you got to walk on eggshells around him. But he's a fellow servant in the Lord. But fellow servant in the Lord, meaning he also works really well with others. He's very flexible. Okay, it doesn't have to be my way. That's all right. It's just a suggestion, but we'll go do it this way. Let's just focus on the Lord. Let's focus on His glory. Let's just do that. And he flows. He flows well with people. A fellow servant. He doesn't think he's better than anybody. In the Lord. And everything he has is like, let's focus on the glory of the Lord here. in the Lord will tell you all the news about me. Again, he's a great guy that you could trust to deliver the information. I am sending him to you for this very purpose. Does this sound familiar? It is. Exactly what we read in Ephesians. That he may know your circumstances, but not only. See, he keeps adding stuff. He works well with others, and he has a servant's heart. But what? That he may know your circumstances. He is concerned about others. Have you ever seen people that when you sit with them and talk with them, have you ever noticed there's certain people that just love to talk about themselves? Have you ever met someone like that? It's just like, oh, me. It's like, how did we get over here? We're talking about something else. How did we end up on you? And every time, no matter what you do, it just ends up on them. It's like, oh, me. And that is not Tychicus. He cares about other people. He cares about their circumstances. And he wants to know how are they doing. And especially there was Colossians, there's a lot of false teaching that had entered into that city. And he wants to make sure that they are okay. And here he says, I'm sending him for this very purpose, that he may know your circumstances. And then once he hears you, he's not the kind of person that just hears like, My father-in-law told me a very funny story. And he was in Egypt and in the army, and he has a weakness. And that weakness is if something's funny, good luck. He's going to laugh, even if the circumstances you're not allowed to laugh. And so there was someone in trouble, and the guy who was like a high person in the army was talking to someone on the phone, and he's trying to make sure that this soldier gets it right. And then as he's listening to him, he's like, that's his way of like listening. And then as he tried to block it out of his mind, and he sounded really funny because it's like it kept going. It was not like for like once or twice. It was like minutes and minutes and minutes. And then he just busted laughing because like, wow, and then what's this guy doing? He's really listening, but he's not trying to solve anybody's problems. Now, Tychicus is not one of this like, kind of, it sounds ridiculous kind of guy. He actually listens, okay? And some people are good listeners, but then that's it. That's where it ends. It's much more powerful to have something beyond that. And there's nothing wrong with just being a good listener, but he's a good listener to know your circumstances and what comfort your heart. He has the ability to take that problem that you've given him, that difficult situation, that difficult circumstance, you pouring your heart out, and then takes it, and then maybe you saw it like extremely negative, that there's no way out, and just kind of like, wow. Shows it to you from God's perspective, and then suddenly, you feel encouraged. You feel comforted. You feel like, you know what? Praise the Lord for this. I needed this. He's that kind of guy. Is there a Tychicus tonight? I think every church needs multiple Tychicus. We've seen twice he was able to plug in where he's needed. No questions asked. No need for attention. Not asking for any accommodations. Twice. We've seen once he risked his life to prepare the way for someone he believes in, and that is for Paul the Apostle. We've seen twice Paul is speaking about him in such an endearing way, a beloved brother, faithful minister, fellow servant. He can deliver news, and he delivers it just right. He doesn't add, he doesn't take away. And also, he listens and he comforts. Oh, that the Lord would make a many Tychicus out of many of us. 2 Timothy 4, verse 12, and Tychicus I have sent to Ephesus. So let's review. We've already reviewed it, but just to be sure. So let's name the people that he wanted so far. Okay, now this is before he dies. This is what he really needs before he dies. First person? Timothy. Second, who's already with him? Luke. Third, he wants him to bring with him? Mark. And now he says, I want more stuff. Okay, what? Verse 13. Bring the cloak. What is the cloak? Does anyone know what a cloak is? A garment. You said something, Clothes. It had to be something bad because she won't say. All right, a garment, clothes. So actually, it could actually mean like a bag that holds like books and stuff. But I agree with you. I think it is clothing, and it's like a garment, like something to keep him warm, like a jacket. Like this would be a cloak. And so here he says, bring the cloak. Now it's pretty amazing because why would Paul need a cloak? Because he's cold. And the thing is, okay, raise your hand if you have more than one cloak. Okay, maybe it's easier if you put your hands down. Raise your hand if you don't have any cloaks. Raise your hand if you only have one cloak. Okay? So today, just today. I mean, it had to be today when we're talking about this. Okay, my wife, okay, buys me a cloak. And I was like, I don't want this cloak. It's a camel's. She says she wants me to wear a camel. I said, I ride a camel. I'm from Egypt. Okay. Camel color. Okay, never mind. Anyways, that goes against, where I'm from. But anyways, so now I have another cloak on top of what I'm already wearing. And so here Paul is not like that. He only has what? One cloak. And it happens to be not on him. Where is this cloak? This is huge. This is a big deal because it shows the simplicity of the life of Paul. But also it shows that, sometimes we can be so spiritually minded that we are no earthly good. Okay, you guys have heard this. Many people say it. We all read it. Like we've read it. Someone wrote it somewhere and we all read it. All pastors will mention this. We'll say it at one point or another. But the thing is, Paul, does he talk spiritual? Yes, absolutely. I mean, he wrote the majority of the New Testament. Most of the New Testament teaching is God used Paul to write it for us. But does he also love people? Oh, look at the ending of any of his epistles. He talks about people. One person count. I've never personally done it, and I'm kind of thinking maybe I should do it one time to validate. One person counted said that Paul has, if you look at the book of Acts and his epistles, and if you write all the names specifically, and all those names that are mentioned, those about 100 people, they're his friends. He's a friend maker. He's not an enemy maker. He had enemies. He had lots of them, but they made themselves enemies to him. He never makes an enemy with anybody. And here we see that he's a friend maker, but also so he loves people. And he serves people, and he allows people to minister with him and to serve him. He's okay with that. But also he knows he has physical needs. Now I have to say, his physical needs are a little different than us. Very minimal. And here he wanted a cloak. Why? It's going to be cold. How do I know? Okay, fine. Look at this. Verse 21. Do your utmost to come before, what did it say? Winter. So it's not winter yet, but he's anticipating. The guy's a planner. He's a planner. He says, I'm going to be cold. I don't have a cloak. And I have a cloak. It's just not on me. And I know where it is. So Timothy, when you're coming, here's what I need you to do. I need you to do a little stop and bring Mark. And then the next stop to bring the cloak. I want the cloak that I left with Carpus. Where did he leave it? At Troas. Did we meet Troas before? You guys remember Acts 20? We talked about it, right? We mentioned Troas there. They met there and they stayed there for 7 days at Troas. And here he's saying, listen, I left my cloak at Troas. Now, why do you think he left it at Troas? Probably, Paul lived this unpredictable life. Everything could be perfect right now. Everything is great. And he's having a great day. He's sharing the word with people. And then suddenly, it's like, run for your life because you will die. And what does he do? He runs for his life. And so he sometimes has to just leave stuff behind. And probably what happened is he left at that moment because he was staying with this guy who was very hospitable to him, and that is Carpus, who was at Troas. And as he stayed there, he probably was in an outing of some kind, of some sort, and then there was an attack. He had to escape, so he left the cloak behind. Now it's what he's anticipating. Winter is coming, and because winter is coming, I need something to help keep me warm. It's my only thing that I have that can keep me warm, so please get me that. So here he plans even for his needs, physical needs, and that is an okay thing to do. Bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas. But Carpus, I think, is pretty amazing. First of all, we know that he's hospitable, because in order for Paul to have left the cloak there, what? He probably hosted him in his place. So here he's hospitable. The second thing is what? He's a guy who can trust in this stuff. Now, you guys think that the cloak, what brand name do you think it is? Marc Jacobs? Because they're biblical. I like it. Marc Jacobs. All right, you can't speak for the rest of the night. I'm sorry. Marc Jacobs, okay. Yeah, I don't think so. But it's a good try, though. I like it. Marc Jacobs, too biblical. I mean, Mark is coming, so maybe Mark is coming and, he'll hang out with Jacob and they'll make Marc and Jacobs. I don't think so. I don't think it's a Louis Vuitton. I don't think it's any of those things, okay? That's probably some raggedy old thing that, can barely keep someone warm. But he had it. Now, Carpus, he kept it for how long? The guy's been in prison for a while. We don't know how long he kept it. But he was what? He was not willing to let it go. Imagine if you're holding on to something who's in prison, who may be alive, maybe dead, you don't know. What would you do with their stuff? Right? It's not like stuff. It's not like Paul, he's a light traveler. He's just got what he's wearing and then the cloak. And we're going to see a couple other things in a minute. He's a light traveler. But here he didn't sell it on eBay. I know there wasn't eBay, but you know what I mean. He didn't sell it. He didn't say, what is this nasty looking thing making some stink in my house? Get it out of here. He didn't do any of that stuff. He kept it because he knows that one day Paul may need it. And he wants to be able to deliver it to whoever's going to give it to Paul, and he wants to give it to him. And I tell you why am I mentioning this and kind of pausing at it? Because some people think this is a useless verse in the Bible. Like, what is the purpose behind this verse? Like, bring the cloak. That's so temporary. Okay, get your cloak, man. Wear your jacket. Why are you telling us about it? And then, that I left with Carpus at Troas. That's nice. Carpus, Troas. We've never heard of Carpus before. We never hear of him afterward. He's the first and last time mentioned his name in the Bible. And then, he says, and the books, especially the parchments. Okay. Enjoy your books and your parchments. Like, we're done. But actually, it's not. It shows that what? Christianity is real. It's not just we talk Bible. We talk Bible. We talk love. We talk friendship. And we talk what? Practical stuff. It shows us, this verse shows us what? His humility. His contentment. Right? He doesn't have a ton of things. But it also shows what? Faithfulness of Carpus. Carpus to the Lord. He said that Carpus is important enough, is doing such a strong ministry, that I want him mentioned because he's a big deal to me. He's serving me. What is he doing? Does he preach? No. Does he sing? No. Does he have like an official office in the church? Nope. What does he do? He's holding on to Paul's stuff. He welcomed Paul. He was hospitable to Paul. You see, in this chapter, it's very phenomenal that the Lord is showing us, hey, there's a Crescens that's mentioned. Only time mentioned in the Bible, that's it, right here. And he went on one errand, right? Crescens to Galatia, for Galatia. And then there's a Carpus. So even though Crescens went on one errand, that's the one errand that we are aware of that the Lord wanted to be mentioned. But to the Lord, he's a growing Christian. He's always, you go to him every year after year, he's different. He's growing in the Lord. He's stronger in the Lord. You find someone like Carpus, solid in the Lord. Maybe not recognized, maybe no one notices him, but he is living for the Lord. He has a normal job, has a normal family, just attends church, receives and serves when he can, and is not in anything formal or anything that's the spotlight. But God notices him. And here we've seen that he was hospitable and he was able to keep the stuff of Paul, allowing it to take up his space, right? Bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas when you come, and the books, especially the parchments. And here we see Paul wants the books. And again, these are his books. Probably he left very quickly. And when he left very quickly, he left his cloak, he left his books, and he left his parchments. And here we see that Paul is saying, listen, these are things that are really important to me. But you're in prison, man. Okay, the cloak, I get it. Prison can be cold, and they may not accommodate you because you're a prisoner. They may not give you like nice stuff or warm stuff. Good. You need your cloak. Why you want books? And especially the parchments. Now, parchments are like papers. And some people believe that maybe it has scriptures on it. Some people think maybe it's commentaries on it. Or some people think it's writing, a place where he could do some writing, where he can write some letters. But we see Paul that even when he's in prison, he also what? He's looking at, okay, if I'm going to be here long term, I need certain things that will help me. And so what will help me? Well, 3 people will really help me. I really need them. Timothy, I got Luke already. Timothy, when you're coming, pass by Mark, bring him. And by passing by Mark, I want you also to go a little bit north, okay, of Ephesus, and I want you to pass by Troas, okay? When you get to Troas, get to Carpus's house, and I want you to get me my cloak, and I want you to get me my books and the parchments. And here we see that Paul is a man of study. He wants the books, which is probably the Word of God, the Old Testament. He wants to study. It's a top priority for him. And then maybe he wants to reflect on it and write. Write what the Lord is speaking to him. Comment on it so that he can capture it as the Lord speaks to him and he could live it out. I wonder how many of us would do that if we're in prison. Or how many of us would be, why me? Lord, I am serving you and I ended up here. Well, I'm not reading. I'm not praying. But how many people would be like, Lord, I just love you. I want to live for you. I'm thankful for the place that I'm in because you allowed it. You want it. It's part of your plan. I didn't happen to come here by mistake. And so I want to honor you here. I want to please you here. I want to serve you here. I want to know you here. And no wonder who wrote, that I may know him. Oh, that I may know him. And the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being in the likeness of his death. You know who wrote that? Paul. You know who he wrote it to? The Philippians. From prison. I want to know him. While you're in prison? Yeah. You're not mad at him? No. I want to know him even more. I want to know him in a more intimate way. I want to experience him in a more intimate way in this prison. I pray that the Lord has spoken to us tonight. And I pray that we reevaluate our needs and the things that we want, or our so-called bucket list. For Paul, it was simple. 3 people, 3 things. Timothy, Luke, Mark, cloak, books, parchments. That's it. 3 people, 3 things. 3 live beings, 3 items. That's all he wanted. And they all had to do with what? Him serving the Lord. And one of them had to do with what? Him being warm, because winter is coming. I pray that we have that simplicity. I pray that some of us are like Tychicus, where we are willing to fill in where we are needed, where we're willing to sacrifice and risk our lives for others, where we are accurate. We can share the word accurately. We don't add to it. We don't take away from it. But also that we are able to hear others and comfort others and be there for others. Let's spend a few minutes in open prayer time.